All right, everybody, welcome back to Around the Draft. We have an impromptu mock draft special today. Unfortunately, we weren't able to make it here yesterday on our normal Sunday show. Let's just say I was not feeling super well. You didn't want to see me try to talk about anything, let alone draft prospects. So, we should be having our normal show this Thursday to make up for it. Just as a heads up for everybody, look out for that. When that happens, we'll definitely send some stuff out so you guys can see it. But I do have Dalton here with me. We're going to do a post combine mock draft, have a little bit of fun, talk a little bit about what we saw at the combine first, and just get into a mock draft because, of course, everybody loves mock drafts. Got to do a mock draft when we can. So, but yeah, Dalton. So, what did you think of? What is your main takeaways from the combine? I know there's a bunch of stuff that happened. There's the Xavier Worthy thing, and the tackles were crazy athletic, like a lot of stuff. But just give me a couple things that you thought was really interesting that came out of the combine.
I think a lot of guys on the defensive side of the ball made themselves some money. I think, we know this top 10 is probably going to be pretty offensive heavy, but there are a few great athletes on defense that made strong cases for themselves being high picks.
For sure.
And then I think, the other one, looking at the quarterbacks, I think for the most part, it was as expected for most. I think Penix did well to help. I think Penix at least assuaged some of the fears as far he reminded everyone why we like him. He can throw.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And then I do think the only guy that out of the quarterback class that didn't help themselves this weekend was Jayden Daniels, just because he didn't take measurements, and that's the only thing anyone's really worried about.
Yeah, for me, I'll start with the quarterbacks too, just because I thought it's interesting. The fact that the top guys didn't really do anything was, so it's always a little bit frustrating, but I also understand they don't have to do this. This is not something that's going to ultimately affect them that much. Daniels, I would have liked to see measure in, or at least plan to measure in and try to get him, because we saw McCarthy at 219. He does not play at 219. He did his work to get up to 219 to make himself look a little bit bigger. I think Rattler did that a little bit too, actually.
Yeah.
Personally. So putting in that work to do that would have been nice to see, but at the same time, I don't expect it to really impact, especially the top three guys that much.
Yeah.
The thing with Penix that I was most excited for is that as far as reports go, seems like medicals checked out good.
Yeah.
That was a big hurdle for him because
I
still view him as more of a day two quarterback because of some of the limitations. But now it's a firm top of the second round type of guy, opposed to you might want to wait a little because you don't know if you're going to get more than 5, 6, 7 years out of him. Now you might not have to worry about that as much, just from the medical standpoint.
Yeah, and with Penix, I don't think he can throw on camera enough.
Just keep reminding people of the arm you got, man. Just keep doing that. So I agree with you there for sure. The defensive guys definitely, especially the edges. I'll start with Dallas Turner because as much as Verse also had an insane day, and it's going to help make that conversation more and more difficult for evaluators, who you want to take first. He was a freak, right? This is kind of what we expected. This is what he's known for, is that burstiness, not the biggest edge. And really, there's not many big edges this year. There hasn't been in the last 2 years. So, it's a little bit of a misnomer. It's not that big of a deal because not many guys are bigger than him anyway. But tested off the charts. Forget what his RAS came in. I know it was high 9s. And I also have to shout out Laiatu Latu. He tested plenty well enough for people to not have really concerns about that part of it. Because that was my thing, is he going to test as a good athlete or an average athlete? I didn't think he was going to be a great athlete. He kind of got closer to great than even good, honestly. His workout really kind of put some of those concerns away, and his medicals also seemed to come back pretty clean. A lot of the medical guys came back clean as far as I know, even Peyton Wilson, linebacker, who also tested like a crazy athlete too. His apparently were pretty good. Really nice to see that. You don't want to see guys fail that part of it, right? Especially the injury prone guys.
Yeah. No major issues. But I think just defense in general, I think everyone's in love with the top offensive prospects.
Again, I get it for sure.
But the defensive guys reminded us that they are great athletes, and there are some special players in the defensive side of the ball in this draft.
Yeah, one guy that tested also spectacularly, but only got to do so much because of I think it was a quad injury or something like that, or hip pointer possibly. Nate Wiggins tested crazy, but did come in at 173, which is you're getting close to Emmanuel Forbes territory. You don't want to be in that category. I was hoping to see him at least in the 180s because he was listed at 185 at Clemson. Maybe he slimmed down and try to run fast. I don't agree with that strategy because he was going to run well anyway, but maybe that's what he did. But that was a little bit disappointing, though, to see him kind of fall in that way because he didn't get to do the testing and everything else in the drills. But we'll see him at his pro day. I think he said he's expected to still be ready for that, which is good. Should mention Xavier Worthy. I mean, broke the combine 40 record. Look, doing it. Like, obviously, it's really all he did. But when you break the record for the 40, that's all you kind of
need to do,
right? I know that the track record of smaller receivers that run in the 4.2s is not exactly great, but I do think he's a really good player that also just happens to be the record holder in the 40, right? I'm not worried about him that much. Yeah,
you can't coach the speed.
You can't. Yeah, you're right.
You can't.
Right team, right situation. Definitely could end up being more of a Deshaun Jackson than some of the guys who've been labeled Deshaun Jackson clones, right? I think he's more of that type of player than maybe some of the other guys have been. But yeah, I mean, the guys ran fast. Corners showed out, like you said. Like the defensive guys showed that, like even though this draft is very offense heavy at the top, it doesn't mean that there's not good defenders. It just means this wide receiver and quarterback class is different compared to some of we've gotten recently. So.
Yeah, another guy I want to mention on the defense side of the ball, Byron Murphy. Being 300 pounds and running a sub 4.9 40.
Yeah. Jumped well.
Was wild.
Yeah. I mean, he actually came in a little shorter than I thought he would be too, but that honestly, I don't care about that with like interior guys as much.
His split was very impressive. His 10-yard split was 1.69, which was the 4th out of all defensive tackles. I mean, he had an impressive day. And
yeah, again, a lot of the interior guys
5 and bench
did well too. You'll get Braden Fisk too from Florida State.
Yeah,
he had a hell of a workout for a guy his size. I mean, sub 300, but not that far sub 300, and still worked out the way he did. He definitely made himself some money, I think. Like, and there wasn't as many. I would say there wasn't as many disappointments testing wise as maybe I was expecting because every year there's a couple of guys. One guy should shout out, or maybe not shout out, but like just kind of bring up. Kalen King continues to not do much for himself in this draft here. Like, he looks more and more like a safety type. Quicker than fast, good, good coverage instincts, but just like, I don't know. He's a guy that I'm really curious to see what teams fall on ultimately with him.
Yeah, I did actually get a chance to watch him in some of the ball drills that they did. And in those, he at least, he didn't look out of place, looked solid in those. I mean, those are ones that you can really only hurt yourself. But yeah, he didn't, the numbers did not work well in his favor. Yeah, he's tricky, and it's just all those Penn State guys are tricky because you just don't know how much is them and how much is scheme, and the fact that they're playing with so many other NFL caliber players.
That's another thing. Chop Robinson, freak. Theo Johnson, almost the most athletic tight end ever at the combine. Now, I've watched a lot of him because as I mentioned before, I think on here too, I do write for Penn State site as well. And the thing with him is that he feels like an athlete that is very sudden, but then doesn't have the agility and the long speed to really make good on some of it. And that's the case with a lot of these good testers is sometimes they're just very linear athletes and they don't have a lot of the juice to the side. I think he's going to be a good player. I would definitely take him in the mid rounds, but I do think people should be, cautionary about looking at the testing numbers. I don't think it necessarily plays out on the field like it may look like. So all those Penn State guys, we know they're going to test well. That's never the question. It's just, are they going to be Mike Parsons? Or are they going to be like Brandon Smith, who's a freak athlete but hasn't done much in the league, right? Like, it's just comes down to that. But definitely excited to see what those guys do. But let's get into mock drafts, Dalton. Let me pull it up here. We're going to start that. And we're going to, obviously I don't like doing the predictive mock drafts, especially this far out from the drafts. It's still going to be like what we would do, but with a little bit of an emphasis on like, all right, who had good combines, does that change our opinion much of them at all? Does it not? And, we didn't really talk about the tackles. Tackles also showed out, like Joe Alt coming in almost 6'9" and having the agility and speed numbers he put up. Like, those guys definitely showed out too. Yeah. Olu did really well. Mims had he had the short shuttle that was reported that didn't actually happen that almost like killed people. It felt like because they're like 4.33. What the like? No, that didn't happen. That was not a real number. But it still is like just crazy stuff happening with the tackles too. So but let me bring the mock here. So we have that almost set up all the way. So I'm going to do evens, just so you know, Dalton. I didn't say that before the show, but I've been doing odds so often. I was like, probably people don't want to see me pick the same type of guys.
That gives me the Raiders at 13.
Yeah, there you go.
It gives me the Steelers at 20, doesn't it?
It does, yeah, we'll see. But we're not going to do any trades in this one just to save ourselves that trouble, by the way. We'll do more trades as we get into it. But I will say one of the things we're going to do, and this is partly based on what was reported today and what's been coming out of the Combine, we're going to assume that Fields isn't a Falcon because it seems like they're actually more in on Kirk Cousins right now. And that means Minnesota might be more of a quarterback option too. And then with Fields, like I'm going to say at this point that maybe we don't know his landing spot because right now it doesn't feel like anyone in particular is really gunning for him.
The Raiders are allegedly showing interest, which makes sense with who they hired for the offensive coordinator. But that's still one. I think that's still very much a rumor.
Right.
And two, I don't know if it takes them out of the running for a quarterback necessarily.
Anyway, either way.
They spend a third or fourth round pick on him.
Which might be all they can get. That seems more and more likely too that it's going to be either a late day 2 or early day 3 pick, which I mean they've kind of backed themselves into a corner, which might be for the best anyway because you're going to get likely Caleb Williams. We assume we'll see if that's where you go, but I think that realistically, like they just need to get what they can for him, move on, start over that position. But all right, let me start the draft here. So you are on the clock here with the Bears. I imagine.
It's going to be Caleb Williams. It's going to be Caleb Williams. It's going to have to be.
Right, absolutely. Yeah, this
is the guy. You take him and figure everything else out later.
Right, which honestly, this is going to be the best situation I think that they've drafted a quarterback into because they have DJ Moore there now because they probably can add either maybe another receiver at 9. We'll see what you want to do there, or look at that for agency. Like they should be primed to make this a much better situation than Justin came into or Mitch before him or really any of these guys that they've gone to. So I think it makes a ton of sense. Been kind of what we expect to happen and nothing has changed from the Combine. So for me, I am kind of wavering between May and Daniels myself, but I do think that May just still is the better player and better prospect by a little bit. And I'm going to take him with Washington here. I know the Kingsbury thing is a little bit weird, but I don't really think it matters too much whether it's Daniels or May. The Kingsbury is just going to do what he's going to do regardless. So you're on the clock with the Patriots. This is where, again, the drafts, we presume, could start to kind of shake up a little bit depending.
Yeah. The way I look at it with the Patriots, there's a lot you could do.
Yeah.
Quarterback's definitely an option.
For sure.
I don't know if they're going to go that way because I still think, even though Belichick's not there, I still very much think this is going to be a Patriot way pick, in where I don't think they reach for a quarterback if they don't think someone like Jaden Daniels or Bo Nix is the guy.
Right.
I think they go best player available and just say we're taking Marvin Harrison Jr. because in a lot of years he'd be the number 1 overall pick.
Yeah, for sure. Especially if it's a draft that isn't super quarterback heavy, you could easily see a guy like him going first overall. And I think more importantly, the Patriots, obviously we're not doing trades in this mock, but if we were, I do think that is really the main question for me is whether they consider moving down and taking advantage of having a pick this high, still maybe getting a receiver or a big-time piece down the board, letting someone else maybe come up for a quarterback here. But with that not being part of what we're doing, we'll just go ahead and take Marvin for them. Now, the Cardinals, you hate to see that a little bit because you're kind of hoping Marvin is there for you at 4, whether it's because the Patriots take a quarterback or someone jumps up ahead of guys to get a quarterback. But considering the situation, I still think Neighbors is not that far off from being the best receiver. I do think that Harrison is just the safer bet in my opinion, but Neighbors is right there with him. And Adunze is kind of creeping up into that territory for me too a little bit. He had a great day at the Combine as well. So, but I'm going to go Neighbors here, get a weapon for Kyler. Need to get that passing game going a little bit again, and just don't have enough pieces there right now. So go ahead and take Neighbors here. Chargers, 5. This could go a couple directions too, I think, right? Yeah. Depending on your preference here.
there's a lot of different options that people have talked wide receiver for them, but like they still do have good receivers. And I also think given the staff Harbaugh's bringing in and what's available right here, is there more of a Jim Harbaugh player than Brock Bowers?
That's kind of the question, right? Is I think if it's a offensive weapon, it could be Neighbors, it could be a Dunzaven. I think it's more likely Bowers, especially with what they want to do.
You can move him around, yeah.
Mm-hmm. I will say, there's God, sorry.
So I just think about the different guys that Greg Roman used in Baltimore that are so similar to Bowers' build, but Bowers is just a better athlete than anyone he's ever had.
Right. You insert him from what Mark Andrews was doing in the passing game, you'd probably get even better results, in my opinion.
Yeah.
But, we got a comment here. Good evening, Jeff. Thanks for joining us. So we are going to go Bowers, and I'm assuming that's where you want to go then with that.
Absolutely.
Okay. Now, I will say, obviously we're not doing this mock, but there was a lot of conversation about offensive tackle being maybe they're kind of where they're keying in on, and they asked Joe Alt about would you have you considered the fact you may have to move to right tackle based on who takes you? And he said he has been working on that a little bit. Makes me wonder if he's talked to teams and they might be interested in that. But I agree, Bowers is kind of a guy that it's hard to pass up on there. Giants. Now, Felix, if you're watching, I know that he got busy. He wanted to be on tonight, but he couldn't be, at least right now. So if you're watching, I'm going to try to do right by you. I'm kind of in between two options here. You have Alt sitting here, who I think could play right tackle. You could keep I can't think of his name right now for some reason, the left tackle for them. I hate whenever this happens in the middle of, Thomas, right? Is it Andrew Thomas? Yeah, left tackle. So you could keep Andrew Thomas the left tackle, who's been great, pretty much your only consistent lineman on that line. You maybe move, again, forget his name, the tackle from Alabama, Evan Neal. You can move him inside, maybe give him a shot to win a spot at guard, really help that offensive line, because it seems, and that's what kind of came out of the combine, that Daniel Jones is going to be the quarterback next year. Which I know that Felix probably just wanted to, if he is watching it while he's doing whatever he's doing, he probably wants to turn it off, just the fact I said that. But seems like where that's going. So if that's going to be the case, the only thing you can really do is either give him a weapon or try to protect him better. With the way he played, what he showed at the combine and just this run of offensive weapons, I'm going to take a Dunze here. They need somebody to funnel the passing game through, and they do not have it. Darren Waller might retire if you've seen that. It's just a mess there. And as much as the line is a mess, even if you protect Daniel Jones, if he has nowhere to go with the football, how much will it matter, right? It's two sides of the same coin. It's the Bengals meme from a couple years ago, the Jamar Chase versus Penei Sewell debate. It's that type of thing. But I think in this case, it makes even more sense to go receiver, because there's at least a chance you could develop a couple of these offensive linemen. You have nobody at receiver right now.
Yeah,
so,
I agree.
Yeah, so let's Titans. They have Alts right here, but they were talking about offensive weapon too a little bit.
Yeah,
but the way the boards fall, But go ahead.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. I think I think Titans. So they could go O'Dunes here, but I think you got a quarterback last year. You feel pretty good about Will Levis at this point. Now you got to protect him. And I think Joe Alt makes a lot of sense here for a couple reasons. One, I do think if he had to, he could move over to right tackle. But also, I think Nicholas Petit-Frere is it too early to say he might be a bust?
Oh, I would say at this point he's a bust.
Yeah.
They're just, as far as the left side, right side, it doesn't matter. They need a tackle. And I think it's going to be left. I would strongly consider giving Skoronski run at right tackle next year too.
Yeah.
Just because even if you're not sure he can play it, I always thought he could probably do it, even with the arm length thing. You might want to just find out, just so you know. Because at this point, it was rough on the edges of that offensive line.
Yeah. So, I think we're just going to – and – I think Alt's versatility, I think he makes more sense than Fashanu in this situation.
I would say so.
So we're going to go Joe Alt.
Go Joe Alt. All right. Falcons. Now, at this point, there's somebody still on the board here. who I'm sure that they would love considering their offensive weapons and all their talent. Daniels is still sitting here at 8. And there's McCarthy talk about there's some people that have him at third quarterback. I certainly can't get there. Considering like if we're doing a talent thing, I think Daniels is more talented. McCarthy's younger, so that's an element for him. But I gotta go Jayden Daniels here at 8. This would be perfect for the Falcons if it fell this way.
I like it. All
right, Bears at 9. So far, as kind of most people do, we are all offense. Is this where things change a little bit?
This is tricky here. This is probably where I think, what I have graded might influence a little bit personally, because I mean,
that's what we're doing. What would you do if you're in this situation?
So, to me, this number 2 wide receiver is still available. I know you have DJ Moore, but I don't think if you're drafting Caleb Williams, he is gonna be your offense. Yeah. And you can't put enough weapons around him his rookie year. And quite frankly, I don't think you're going to fix all the offensive line issues overnight with one guy. So you want to let Williams do what he does best, run around and throw people the ball. And you want guys that are going to get open. And like I said, the second best wide receiver, in my opinion, in this class is Rome Odunze. And he is still available, right?
No, I have.
Oh no, you took him with the Giants.
Yep, he's a Giant, so
okay,
he's out of question there. Unfortunately for you,
you're
good. That's what I was gonna say. Like, I was wondering if you're like, are you really willing to take a different receiver this time?
I am still tempted for Troy Franklin here, but with that being the case, I do think you protect Caleb Williams, and you get They didn't recently take a tackle, did they?
Right now, their tackles are Darnell Wright at right tackle, last year's number 10 pick. And then they have Braxton Jones at left, who they do like. So it's to me, I would doubt they go tackle early just because I think they like the 2. But Jones is a 4th round pick, I believe. Like, he wasn't like this high pick, but he's played relatively well. I think it's up for debate whether they should do that or not, but I don't know if I would say they would. But this is this is what you'd be doing if you're building
honestly,
a team. So.
I don't hate the idea with Odunze off the board. Let's protect Olu, or let's protect Caleb Williams. Let's get Olu and just be done with it. Now you have your franchise. You have your 2 most important offensive positions taken care of for probably the next decade. You're not going to worry about quarterback or left tackle for at least the next 10 years.
Well, there you go. Makes sense to me. Kind of crushing Jets fans' hearts with that one, because I do like some of the other tackles here, but it does beg the question, like, which one do you take? I do think it's probably still a tackle. You have Latham, Mims, who had a great combine, Fuago, who also did pretty well. I think, for me, considering this pick is ultimately being made because you do need offensive line help desperately in general, but you specifically need help because Aaron Rodgers is going to try to come back after an Achilles tear last year. Like, you need to try to make good on a season with him while you have him on the roster. And Fuaga, who I think is a really good tackle, he's not the best pass protector. And with the way that he played at the combine and what he showed at his size, I actually think this is going to be Amarius Mims for me. I know this is high for a guy who didn't play a ton in college, but when he did play, he was excellent. His testing numbers were off the charts. His size is historic for someone that's as athletic as him as he is as well. I think it's a big gamble for sure, but it could very much hit, and you have a Pro Bowl left tackle for a very long, or right tackle specifically in this case, for a very long time. So we're going to go.
Yeah, I don't hate that pick.
Now you have
a lot of cases he's the 3rd best tackle in this draft.
Yeah, he's going to be a guy that I have to watch his tape again, because again, there's not a lot of it, but I want to watch it again a couple times and see if there's anything that worries me about him on the field other than just the lack of snaps situation. But all right, you have the Vikings up here at 11.
Yeah, this is tricky because I do think if the board falls like it just did, I think that 10 pick, I wouldn't be surprised if the Jets trade out of it, because I think these next 3 teams are all going to be looking to move up for a quarterback.
Yeah, it's totally possible.
because I think, and this is really tricky because the Vikings are one of those teams that may need to blow it up, but they also look like they could be a quarterback away from like contending if they can, they had a good, decent team last year. Who knows what they would have done had Kirk Cousins not been hurt?
For sure.
I don't know. There's still a lot of potential for them to reunite with him.
Yeah.
I think that still is probably what happens. So we're not going to go quarterback here. But I do think we are going to try to protect him a little bit. But defense, we're going to go Byron Murphy. After the combine, he had Byron Murphy.
That's totally fair. There's also reports that they want to keep Hunter. They're trying to keep him in the building. If they do that, edge is still a concern, but it becomes less of one for sure. You have at least one guy you can trust, so that's certainly interesting there. Broncos. I think that even though I wouldn't feel great taking him this early, it kind of feels like they've boxed themselves into a position of taking a quarterback at 12 or moving up to get one in the actual draft if it comes to that. And especially with the news that Russell Wilson is definitely going to be cut or has been cut, you kind of have to go quarterback. And for me, even though I have a little bit of a higher tape grade on two other guys, McCarthy with his youth is a big part of it, and also his playmaking ability. I think you have to take McCarthy here if you have to take a quarterback, which they kind of forced me to. It's not necessarily what I'd love to do. I'd love to trade back in this situation and still maybe take one of the guys that I think could start for this team. But sitting here at 12, we're going to take McCarthy and move along. Raiders, Dalton, your team.
So it's going to be a very similar situation for me here. Personally, he's very high on my board, and I do like him for the Raiders. We're going to go Bo Nix here. Okay. He's my QB3, which I know is very different from most traditional thought, but I do have – he's my QB3, and I have a late first-round grade on him right now because full disclosure, my Daniels grade's very low.
Yeah, we know.
But yeah, I think I would want to trade back and try to get Nix closer to 20, but I think there's a decent chance that you're going to have to overpick for a quarterback. I mean, you pretty much
pull the trigger on those guys. Yeah.
And I think, with the Raiders, there's talk of the Justin Fields trade, but that's a half measure. At this point, you got to swing for the fence, especially if the message you're sending to the fan base is that Derek Carr wasn't good enough. You have to swing for the fences. Now, I don't think Nix is that high ceiling guy.
No, me either.
But I do think my comp for him is Dak Prescott. And I think if you're the Raiders and you add that to an offense with Josh Jacobs, Devontae Adams, and Jacoby Myers, and Hunter Renfrow, Michael Mayer, I mean, you've got something.
Yeah, I agree. I think that would definitely be interesting because again, O'Connell, I don't want to watch. I'm sure you don't either want to watch a full season of him having to try to go out there and do it as much as very valiant effort. I would consider it last year, but
way too many bad sacks. Just way too many.
Yeah, he's one of those just the play's never over type of guys, and when you're not as talented as you need to be to do that, it gets ugly. Saints here, so I'm sure they would love to be in a position to take a quarterback, but unfortunately, because they are the proverbial kick the can down the road until it's not a can anymore, it's a heap. They have to basically deal with Derek Carr for the next 2 years, whether they want to or not. It's pretty much what they set themselves up for. So instead of wasting a pick on a quarterback that either is not going to play because of Derek Carr, or you have to pay Derek Carr more money than the rest of your players while not playing him, we're going to go ahead and take the edge that I think makes the most sense for them because I think defensive line is still one of their biggest concerns. Tackle certainly a concern too, but I don't love the fit for the guys that are still on the board as that more pass protection that they need. They have guys who they can run block, all right, but not really anybody who can pass protect. So you're going to have to try to probably figure that out elsewhere. Jared Verse is the one that makes the most sense for me. Turner, I think I'm going to end up slightly higher on. I haven't gotten to the edges fully yet. It's later on down this cycle before we get to that video. But versus bigger player, more powerful, still tested unbelievably well. Actually, almost identical to, I think, Will Anderson last year. His numbers were almost identical to him. So, for me, makes more sense. They like those bigger, more powerful edges in general. So, and they need some help now that Cameron Jordan's pass rushing, especially, is kind of falling off. So we're gonna go Jared Verse here. Colts 15.
So
yeah,
we know what the Colts want to do on offense. They're gonna pound the rock. They got a quarterback that I think is better suited for a run-first offense. They have Jonathan Taylor. What you got to have if you're going to run the ball a lot in this league is you got to have good interior offensive line. They have some needs at center and guard. And there's a guy here that can play both. He's probably one of the best offensive linemen in this draft. We're going Jackson Powers Johnson.
Wow.
Perfect fit.
Nice. I think that his ceiling starts right about here. I think the Colts, because of the way that they do stuff, and I know this is what we would do, obviously, so it's not as big of a deal, but minus some stuff that we've been cornered into, like the quarterbacks and stuff like that. But this, I think, is about his ceiling, where you have a guy that can play center, guard, and Kelly played maybe his best year of his career for them in the center for the Colts, but he's over the age of 30 now, I believe, so he's not getting any younger. Guard other than I'm having trouble with names today. The guard for them.
Yeah. What's not that
I think my brain's finally getting fried.
Yeah.
They know who we're talking about.
Yeah.
Point is, they still need some help there for sure, so we can go Jackson Powers Johnson here. Seattle. So this is a tough spot for me because there's interior players I still really like, or guys who I think can play interior offensive line outside of Jackson Powers Johnson. They need help there. Edge is still a concern, though. Honestly, outside of Boya Mafe showed up last year, Nwosu's kind of like a hybrid player for me a little bit. Still could use a guy there because their defense just really faltered down the stretch and it made it basically impossible. I mean, they kind of looked bad against the Steelers offense, if that tells you anything down the stretch. So, yeah, you don't want to look bad against us. I'm going to put it that way. So I think I'm going to go ahead and get Dallas Turner off the board here. It makes a ton of sense. Brings a ton of speed and energy to the defense. So we'll go Dallas Turner here.
I like
and
it.
I got with the Jags.
Yeah, I like that pick there. I think I wasn't sure if you were going to go Turner or Latu.
For me, Latu, I love him, and his testing made me more comfortable with him going early, but I still think that
Turner's
in general, you want to go for the athletes if you can, especially ones who I think are also good pass rushers, even though Turner still has a little bit of ways to go with moves and stuff. But yeah, I think you got to go with him here.
Yeah. So here, I think we're going to continue with the defense run here. I thought about Latu here, but the best defensive back in this class is still somehow fallen to 17. Yep. We're going. Oh yeah, Kool-Aid McKinstry.
Oh, that's right. I know you're a big Kool-Aid guy. That's right. All right, Kool-Aid at 17.
Kool-Aid. I think, I get a lot of these guys, a lot of these corners had great combines this weekend, but Kool-Aid is still in the secondary in this class. He's the best pure football player. He is going to bring the most to the table of anybody. With secondaries, you have to move guys around. I think he's going to be an exceptional contributor on special teams. There's just so much you can do with him.
Fair enough. All right. So we have Kool-Aid go at 17. First corner off the board in this mock. For me, so at the Bengals spot here, I'd love you. Let me just scroll down as for now. I'm just kidding. I'm going to mess you up too much. For me, if I'm the Bengals, you still have to, as much as they've thrown resources at it and done different things, I still think the offensive line is a problem. And at some point, you're going to have to start taking guys who you think can develop into big-time starters instead of kind of spending on mid-tier free agents. And especially with their cap now going to be more of a problem with Burrow extension coming up, and they have to pay Jamar Chase, probably not going to be able to pay T. Higgins. Got to start swinging for some tackles here. I think I'm probably Latham, I feel like, is going to end up being a guard. Fuaga, I think, also has the chance to do that, maybe be a more impactful player there. But I think he has a better chance of sticking long-term outside a tackle, so I'm going to take Fuaga here at 18. All right, Now, I know personally what I would do here. I think you might be thinking the same thing. We'll see, but
this is tricky. I think, the Rams are at a point where I don't think they're getting the results on defense that they expect with having Aaron Donald there.
Yeah, not much around him until this past
year. Exactly. Get him some help. Yeah. And I am very torn here between going edge or more of a hybrid D-tackle, D-end guy that you can kind of move around.
Okay.
I think because of Donald's presence, we are going to stay on the edge here more. But we're going to Jared Verse.
We're going to
Jared Verse.
Verse went to the Saints, just so you know.
Oh, I thought. Oh, I didn't realize.
Verse. There you go. So Verse is a 14. Turner got taken to 16. I took those two edges.
Yeah, then we're gonna go.
Latu's on the board still at edge.
I know.
Defensive interior. Newton's on the board still. Yeah.
And you know what? I was thinking it, and then I talked myself out of it. We're gonna go Johnny Newton.
Johnny Newton. All right, fair enough.
Johnny Newton and Aaron Donald
and Kobe Turner all on the same defensive line too.
Yeah, it'd be terrifying.
Yeah, with the way that Newton, the way that Turner played last year too, 9.5 sacks, ton of pressures. Having that interior trio would be pretty disgusting, I would say. Yeah. So I totally get that. So we're going to take Johnny Newton here. So my Steelers are on the clock. Go ahead, sir.
And Newton, you can move so much.
Yeah, you can move him around. Yeah, he's not one of those just can only do one thing type of guys. So I have my pick of corners. The tackle board, unfortunately, has been pretty much completely wiped out. It's of guys that I think could come in and do what I want them to do. Like Fontenot the way he tested and also how he measured makes me think he certainly can stick a tackle long term. The problem is, I think I'd still rather have him inside. Just watching him play, I think he's going to still be a better interior player. Steelers don't need that. At least they need a center, but not a guard. I don't want to move him all the way inside the center. Barton could be a fun move around piece, but again, I don't know if he can play tackle at all. At the next level, Latham, I'm just not a huge fan of. This is going to be Quinyon Mitchell for me. Tested unbelievably well, was a standout at the Senior Bowl, did everything that you could possibly do to show that he can do it all. After questions about it, Toledo, where he didn't have to do much other than play off and just attack the football, proved that he can do kind of everything for you and just an unbelievable athlete. So putting him and Joey Porter Jr. together on that defense, going to have to figure out offensive line another way, probably for agency, but just makes too much sense for me.
I like it. All
right. Miami up to 21.
So there's a fun pick that would be a lot of fun. It wouldn't make any sense. Wouldn't mean anything.
We know.
But how funny would it be to put Troy Franklin on that offense?
I was honestly thinking you were going to say Xavier Worthy with his 4.21. That'd be even funnier.
That too.
Considering if we're just going speed,
just pure speed. Yeah, God.
No,
you wouldn't be able to stop that.
No, probably not. But it'd be funny. Yeah.
But I'm gonna go with the guy that we shit on a lot in our first episode, and probably a little unfairly. But I think he's a great fit for what Miami wants to do. I think going tackle that could also possibly play guard if you needed to would not be bad. I'm going Fuaga here.
Fuaga, unfortunately, again, I can show you 18.
I'm sorry. I don't know why.
You're good. No, you're good. Fuaga is at 18.
Oh, my God. I'm sorry.
It might be hard to see. Yeah, it might be hard to see.
Yeah, it is. It is very tiny on here.
Yeah, so Fuaga goes at 18.
That was my right now.
Fontenot? Okay, that's actually who I was thinking maybe too for them because he has the ability to maybe fill multiple spots for them. So I think we did that last time possibly too. Yeah. But just makes a lot of sense. So Fontenot gets picked here. So we have the Eagles up here. And for me, it's your corner situation. You cannot allow it to happen again like what happened last year where you have two 30-plus-year-old guys just getting absolutely annihilated. I want to take the Gene. He's falling here. I think a lot of it is just like the way that the mock has gone. I don't think it's really an indictment in him at all. I think there's a team that might be coming up that might benefit from that. I think, though, for what they're looking for, I just want somebody who can come in and I think can be a corner one pretty quickly. And of the guys left on the board, one of the guy that I look at is Terrion Arnold from Alabama. I think he's had a great year. Past year is the reason why a lot of people, although clearly Dalton is in the minority there, I think views him above his teammates. Kool-Aid. So we're going to take Arnold here with the Eagles. Now you're up with the Texans.
So I like that pick. I was very worried you were going to go Cooper here.
Yeah.
And that. I can't think of anything more insufferable with Eagles fans than them having Cooper DeJean.
That's fair. Yeah.
That jersey would fly off the shelves.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
In a lot of Philly suburbs. There's a lot of reasons why that jersey would fly off the shelves. But for the Texans, this is a very interesting pick because the Texans are a team that I think have found themselves contending a lot faster than they expected to be. And they need someone that can help them, I think, win right away. And I think with how much Stroud proved that he is going to be the focal point of the offense, I think you try to get him a little more help. I am going to go with Troy Franklin here. He's still firmly my wide receiver 4.
All right, so we'll go Troy Franklin here. Interestingly enough, I think for this pick with the Cowboys, although they need, especially now, possibly tackle help, because it seems that, again, I'm going to flip out because I keep forgetting names, but Tyron Smith apparently is not coming back to the Cowboys, which I did not anticipate having to talk about. But it seems like he wants to maybe get a bag kind of to finish his career because of the injuries and everything else, and maybe wants to play for a team that he doesn't think is going to lose to the Packers by like 25 points in the playoffs. No offense, Cowboys fans. But to me, if you're going to stick with this core, right, if you're going to stick with this group that you've built, the only way you can really get better, in my opinion, because the defense is kind of capped out to me. Like, you could still use some corner help. You could still do some things there. There's corners here. I got to just try to find a way to make this offense go as much as possible. And Brandon Cooks was kind of like, he didn't really work out the way you wanted him to. The other receivers outside of Lamb just really didn't show up that much this past year. I'm going to take a guy who might at least be able to take the top off defenses a little bit and maybe develop into something past that. Give me Brian Thomas Jr. here at 24. Feels like a Cowboys pick that works out at receiver. Dak will love him, I'm sure. Just try to hit him on these go balls at times. Let Lamb kind of handle the underneath, run after catch stuff. That would be certainly very fun. So now this is the team that I thought, depending on what your thoughts are, could benefit from Cooper DeJean continuing to fall.
Yeah, I think that's kind of where I'm leaning, especially because I think, he definitely can play corner. I think, you could always stick him at safety if he needed to. And I think with how multiple NFL secondaries are becoming, I like DeJean here. I think it just makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, and I've heard a lot of this from different people, and I think I've said this a couple of times. I think Brett Coleman is the one who said this, or at least I heard this, that he had mentioned this. I think DeJean's best role in the NFL is going to be kind of like in that just matchup defender role, where Jalen Ramsey does a lot of that for the Dolphins, and before that the Rams, where if your best receiver's in the slot, he's going to go cover him in the slot. If your best receiver is on the outside, he's going to go out to the outside and deal with them. Sometimes he might kind of play back a little bit and read things. Just put him in positions to make plays, because the thing with when you watch DeJean, the athleticism is totally there to be an outside corner. There's no question about that. But when you watch him play, when he has the ability to make plays off instincts, when he can see the ball, go for it, he makes plays on the ball that guys just normally cannot make. The ball skills are different for a player that plays in the secondary. It's just different, right? Yeah. So getting him in that position where if you're the Packers, you can ask him to do a lot of different things and help your secondary out that just needs help across the board. So makes a ton of sense. Bucs on the board here, 26. Mike Evans returns. It's huge for them. You assume Baker Mayfield's going to return as well. So because of that, I'm not looking quarterback here or anything like that. The secondary was really disappointing last year, but I don't know if they're going to take one this early with all the money they still have tied up in the secondary. Who are you going to not play based on that? Like, that becomes a question. Edge, though, Barrett is going to be a cap casualty, or he might already have been one. I know that I saw reported that he's going to be cut if he hasn't already been cut. And there's a guy sitting here that's probably going to go higher than this now that his medical's worked out. Give me Laiatu Latu here to the Bucs at 26. Quite a steal, probably, realistic if this were to happen. So All right, Cards up for you, 27.
So we talked about it earlier with the Cardinals.
They took Neighbors. Remember, I grabbed Neighbors for them.
Jr.
Yeah,
they didn't get it. However, I think this is their chance. Did they go
Neighbors before?
You went Neighbors. That's right. Yeah.
Yes.
So they're good there. I think at this point, you got to do something about the defensive side of the ball. It hasn't really been great for years. I think Jonathan Gannon last year, I think he made lemonade out of lemons.
He did his best. I think it could have been much worse. They developed a little bit of a pass rush. They got some of that going, but it just eventually the talent difference kind of.
You're putting lipstick on a pig.
Yeah. Sure.
And I think Wiggins provides a lot of talent here. Mm-hmm. And that's what they need. They just need an injection of talent, because I do think Gannon is a good coach and he'll get it working. He just needs good players, at least a couple.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think that they just need to inject some youth into that corner room and to really the defense in general, like you said. I think of the players that are on the board here, he would be the one that makes the most sense for a corner room that just was not very good last year. Like, I think they like Garrett Williams, who they took out of Syracuse. He got to play about halfway through the year. That you hope that he can be one of the corners, but outside of him, there's no one that's definitely guaranteed to be a starting corner for them next year. So do go ahead and take care of that. Bills here at 28. This one's pretty easy for me. With the way he tested the combine, with what they kind of need outside receiver, give me Adonai Mitchell, AD Mitchell from Texas. He had a hell of a combine. I think that he, of the guys that are on the board here, receiver, has the right combination of size, speed. You hope he can become a good blocker. He didn't really have to do it much to Texas, but I think that this would make a ton of sense for them as a Gabe Davis replacement.
Interesting.
All right, Lions up here for you.
So looking at where the Lions are at, they're another tricky one where I think there's a lot of different ways you can go with it. But
corner definitely a big need. Yeah. Interior possibly if they don't resign Jonah Jackson.
Interior is a big need. It's just a matter of if you want to go interior this high, because I do think like
Barton's here, which I like, but tough.
Yeah. Frazier's a possibility.
For sure. Because especially there's questions about the center there, Ragnow, his health and stuff like that. So how much longer is he going to play? Yeah. Is he going to be healthy? So
what are the defense? Can you show the defensive line?
Yes. The interior defensive line?
Yeah.
Chris Jenkins is the best one, Fisk. So they're farther down the board at this point. I still think they could honestly even need more help at edge, but you look at edge right now, it's Braswell. I don't know if I'd go that early. Isaac, I like Chops here.
Yeah, I just don't know if they need another more of a speed guy like that.
Right.
And then what do we got left at corner? I know we've kind of
Ennis Rakestraw's here.
Yeah, that's pretty much it.
I think TJ Tampa, I like him, but he didn't get to show off too much. Lassiter, Kyrie Jackson had some good players here. 29. I'm Rakestraw. I think 29 is totally fine. I think don't know anyone else, but
I think given what's here, and I think with Dan Campbell's vibe, I think biting kneecaps. We're gonna go back to that first thing. Biting kneecaps. A guy that really impressed me earlier this year when I watched him was Zach Frazier. They need help in there. I think he's a guy where, he's a low value position, but I do think he's a guy that's going to be a reliable starter in this league for a decade.
Yeah, and you hope maybe, obviously, I think he's big enough to play guard if they need him to. Yeah. I don't know if he'd be as good there, obviously. I think he's more of a pure center, ideally, but with Ragnow, again, he is older. You don't know how much longer he's going to play, and there's been injury questions there. Hopefully that's not a problem for them because he's awesome. Yeah. But if it is, or if they just want to have a plan for after him, makes a ton of sense.
Yeah, and you can always I think you could start him at guard and then eventually transition him over.
Right. Which you hope you can.
Yeah. And for a younger guy, I think sometimes it's better to have those young guys that you might have long-term plans at center, but to at least get their feet wet in the NFL at guard.
Mm-hmm.
I think it'll help, but I don't think he'll have any problems transitioning back to center because of how natural of a center he is.
Right, for sure. For me, so the Ravens here at 30, this one's interesting because as great of a season as they had last year, there's a lot of question marks long term for this team. You're going to probably lose Clowney to free agency. He's probably going to try to cash in on his best year of his career as a pass rusher. Oweh is kind of always been one of those guys that's a really great athlete, but you want to see more from him as a pass rusher. I know that they franchise tagged Madubuike, which is huge because he's going to be a huge piece for them long term, you hope. But their tackle situation is iffy long term, especially because Ronnie Stanley seems to have just not been able to recover from the injuries and play like he used to. So tackle's a question, corner's a question for sure. Like there's a lot of positions that they aren't as strong at as maybe people think, especially going into this offseason. They have a lot of work to do. There's a couple guys. I mean, I still want to see them add to the receiver room. I think that they definitely hit, obviously, with again, why am I blanking? Zay Flowers. But outside of him, it's a lot of question marks, especially because I don't expect Odell to be back, and he was only good like 40% of the time for them. So I think they want some more help there. But at this point, like I really like McConkey, but is that kind of redundant with Flowers? Coleman, I don't really care that much about the 40 because he was fast and everything else he did. I think he's just not a 40-yard type of guy, but I have questions about his game and getting open. Now in the scramble drill, or when Lamar extends plays, he's very good at that stuff, so that would make some sense. But again, I don't know if I view Coleman as a first-round guy at this point. I think this one's a little bit out there, and it's just because I think this is the type of guy that goes there. And similar to Oweh, honestly, it's a very similar type of deal. Chop Robinson to that team with the way they develop edge rushers and defensive linemen, that could be a scary speed duo with him and Oweh, also a Penn State guy. So we'll go with Chop here, I think, is what I'm going to do for them. And we have the Niners here.
So the Niners, I think, they're obviously a team that don't have a lot of needs.
Really just offensive line and corner, primarily, as they have here. I think they hit it on the head with PFF
they
here.
did.
So.
And I think given what corners are left, I don't know if Rakestraw is really worth the first-round pick.
I like him, but I understand that to a certain degree.
A guy that I think, because I do think the Niners, their offensive line needs are kind of, they don't have necessarily one like super glaring hole anywhere, but they have a few needs around the line.
Honestly, I think with Williams, they have 4 holes, and all of them are to varying degrees. Like they're all holes, but some of them are worse, some of them are better. It's kind of, you could argue for an upgrade at any of those spots. So.
And a guy that I think is going to be a right tackle, but also if he doesn't work out at right tackle, will be a great mauling guard. I'm going with J.C. Latham. I think he is everything that Alex Leatherwood was supposed to be. He reminds me a lot of Alex Leatherwood, but like actually capable of playing tackle.
Yeah, but good.
And not a project guard, not a pure project guard.
Right, exactly. I know you know all about Alex Leatherwood, unfortunately.
Oh my God.
But yeah, again, makes total sense to me. Definitely could see that happening. And then we have the Chiefs, who listen, everything about me wants to try to not take a receiver because it's so easy. Like it's just it's so easy. Like you could literally name me like 5 receivers right now that are on the board. I'd be like, yeah, sure. Like the one that I would want to do the least, but I guarantee you if it happens in real life, he's going to have like 1,000 yards is Coleman. I know for a fact that if they draft him, he's going to just suddenly be like, oh, he's always open now. Or like, oh, he catches every contested catch because it's always right. And like, I know that's what's going to happen. So I don't even want to do it because I feel like I'd be prophesizing it. And I don't want to do it because I already know I'm going to be lower on Coleman than a lot of people. And then he's going to get drafted there. And then I'm going to be like, oh, screw me, I guess. I don't know. Like, I guess I'm wrong now because it's Kansas City. Same thing with Rice last year. Like, So I know that's easy. Like McConkey would be the one I want the most, just because I think it's also just a great fit, but also like just so funny if he becomes like the main receiver for them. Just hilarious.
As a Raiders fan, I'm already picturing it McConkey falling to them and being just furious all the time.
Yeah. I think I got to. It's going to be McConkey here.
Yep. 3rd and 14, Mahomes to McConkey. You can already see it all the time.
Stupid. But it's true. So this is our mock, guys. We'll kind of go through real quick. So again, we had Williams go off at 1, kind of typical. The one that I think people are going to be most curious about, like especially if they're not on the Cooley train, is you having Cooley go off the board as the first corner, because I know a lot of people are not there with that. I get it. He was kind of the guy that people were talking about the most coming into the year, honestly. And then Arnold had a great year, obviously, and kind of took some of the spotlight away from him. But I definitely think he's a really good player. So I'm not, I won't argue too hard with you on that one. But anything else you wanted to kind of break down with this? Anything you thought was interesting I did or anything? But
there's one. The Buffalo pick was interesting. I thought for a second you might go. I thought you were going to go Peyton Wilson here for a second there. I thought you were going to go linebacker.
Yeah, I'd love to get Wilson in the first because I think he's the only linebacker that has legitimate first-round ability. But I still think like they're just going to be like, let's just wait.
Exactly. And I think that's the only place you could really see it happening. Like if if they don't take him, I don't see any other team feeling like linebacker is important enough to take.
I mean, you could argue with how bad it is, the Eagles linebackers, but Howie Roseman will never take a linebacker in the first round.
Yeah,
he might not take one in the second round.
Yeah,
it's like it just isn't going to happen, right? So other than that, I'm like, I definitely don't think. You could argue the Steelers, but because Holcomb is banged up still and everything else, but I think they've learned their lesson about taking off-ball linebackers in the first round. Devin Bush, if anyone remembers that, let's not do that again. But yeah, I think overall this mock definitely is different from what we've been doing and definitely a different one than we've done in the past. So and we're going to keep kind of workshopping this as we go through our different positional breakdowns and everything. And as we learn more about, like, hopefully we'll know soon what team Fields plays for and where Cousins ends up signing. And, that'll affect the quarterback market. Like, there's a lot of moving pieces that still need to be decided before people can kind of settle in on team needs and where guys are going to go based on that. So definitely a lot more to come. So thanks, Dalton, for joining me tonight. I know it was impromptu, so I'm glad we were able to get it done. And again, for those of you watching, we will be back Thursday to do the tight ends and running backs episode, our top 5 running backs and tight ends. Get that out of the way, and then we have the wide receiver episode the Sunday coming up, which is going to be wild, I feel like, because we're doing our top 10, and we could have 5 different receivers in that top 10 than everyone. Like, there could be 20 guys that ends up getting talked about in that episode.
Yeah.
So definitely looking forward to that one. Signing off for tonight. Again, thanks, Dalton, for joining, and we'll see you guys next time.